10 days. They have 10 days to figure out how to get around a debt default, or the entire arc of history is going to change around the globe. This will be the moment that they point to in the future when they look back and say, that's when it all fell apart. If we default on our debt, and to be clear, this isn't government shutdown. A lot of people are confusing this idea of Congress not getting together to put together a budget, and then because a budget hasn't been done, the money hasn't been allocated, and they start to shut down parks and stuff like that. That is not this. That is not this at all. This is an entirely different thing. This is us making our interest payments on the debt. And when there's no money, what they have to do is they have to borrow money to make that payment. What do they have to do? They have to raise the ceiling. Well, they're saying they might not. And if we don't raise the ceiling, we can't borrow the money to make the interest payment on the debt. And if we don't make the interest payment on the debt, it is going to set off a chain reaction in this country and around the globe that probably won't be recovered from in our lifetime. And the most terrifying thing about this is, very ironically, Social Security. The one thing that was supposed to be put in place to stop something like this from happening is actually the cause. The ultimate form of socialism that so many right-wing folks take advantage of. We come down here to Florida, God's waiting room, they call it, of all these older folks that are on Social Security checks, but they're big capitalism supporters. Well, capitalism is going to throw them out of their homes. The banks are going to throw them out of their homes when the government checks stop and they can't pay their bills. That's going to be the most terrifying thing, to watch this happen to the older folks, the youngest of the boomers and the oldest of what they call Gen X. Now, real quick, this made a lot of people mad. I got called all sorts of names, still do get called all sorts of names for saying there are going to be people out there who are going to be forced into decisions that are horrible. Meaning normal, everyday. We're not talking about drug addicts. We're not talking about, the dregs of society. Normal, everyday, middle-class people are going to be forced into desperate straits and doing some desperate things to keep the bills paid, keep the lights on. So a lot of these folks are going to probably have to take care of elderly neighbors, elderly family members, because they're not going to be a place to go. Where's that extra money going to come from? Now, we're going to cover this, and I have proof that this is going to be the case, that people, for all their talk about morality, they're going to turn to a certain paradigm in the world that has existed since the beginning of the world. And that's just the reality. And it's the reality in a great portion of the globe other than North America. Ironically, it was socialism that stopped this. But now once that goes away, you can forget about it. But first, I always want to be diligent and say thank you to everyone who's continued to join us here at YouTube for the free stuff. That's perfectly fine. The problem is censors. There's things that I can't say. There's topics I can't even address. Yesterday's video that we did initially got it was fine, but then it got an age restriction on it because of AI, and I appealed it and it got overturned. But it shows you how tough they are. I mean, I'd go back and look at yesterday's video and see if you find anything that would make it seem like it wouldn't be okay for anyone under 18. But those of you who've joined us over at Patreon, $1, thank you so much. I very, very much appreciate it. We're going to have a new video out. We, of course, have the new level, the $5 level. People came to me and asked for me for the button I'd like to support you, give you $5 a month. That's perfectly fine. We have a level for those folks too. But this is going to be a big deal. And I have confirmation that this is going to be the case. What if I told you this was already the case? What I had predicted well over a year ago is already the case now, that even married couples are going to be forced into this scenario. Now, this is yesterday. Social Security payments could stop July 1 if debt ceiling not settled, says experts. A lot of people out there saying, oh, they're going to settle it. It's all bluster. We're only 10 days away. As debt default looms closer, negotiators say they're moving further apart. Both sides are suggesting the other might just want the nation to default on its debt. So this might be a political ploy. We could definitely see this happening. And believe me, there will be nothing more terrifying for older folks, because they don't have options. They don't even have the immoral options that younger people do. To go do this, go do that, go do the other to bring in the extra money. They're going to have nowhere to go. They're going to be at the mercy of the kindness of others. And as many people who want to be kind and want to help out and want to chip in, there's still going to be a financial cost to it now. This was from 7 December of last year. I hadn't seen this article. It's not, and just to be very clear, I'm not saying this is what should happen or ideal outcome or, this is great. Not saying that. It's horrible. It's absolutely terrible. But the one thing that's worse than this is not having the option. Meaning you're just going to be homeless. You're just going to be living on the street, sleeping in your car. That's way worse than this. But let me read just a couple paragraphs. Tiffany smoothed her hair in the bathroom mirror and took off her wedding ring. Little knots tightening in her stomach. The former civil servant, this is from London, by the way, climbed into the car next to her husband, who dropped her off near a plush hotel in Cardiff. She slipped into the hotel bar, weaving through the hum of conversation and piano music, and spotted the man she had been messaging. He too appeared nervous. She left the hotel later that evening feeling relieved. Quote, I felt proud that I'm able to sort us out and keep a roof over our heads, she said. I'm doing this for my family, my house, and my husband. Tiffany is one of a wave of women who, driven in part by the darkening UK economic outlook, are starting or returning to a certain kind of work this year, finding drawn out of Financial Times interview with 23 different individuals engaged in this, as well as 14 charities, advocacy groups, and in cities that are trying to do everything they can to intervene. Now, this particular person's story was, someone say, didn't her husband have a job? Apparently, they say here, economic pressure. Tiffany first started getting into this part-time 6 years ago to pay off a credit card bill. When she was later made redundant from the civil service, she lived off of her husband's tradesman income until lockdown shut down those workshops. Severe deterioration in his mental health in this year means he's unable to work. Tiffany's in her 30s. His full-time career, soaring energy and food bills, combined with debt repayments, outgrew the couple's benefit payments, she said. And with interest rates rising, Tiffany's anxious about their fixed-term mortgage deal coming to an end. By September, Tiffany felt this particular paradigm was the only way she could earn enough to cover costs while maintaining flexibility. She makes about £1,000 a week, which she says she's had to declare to the government, so now their benefits are going away. This type of work is not anyone's dream job, she said. I'm happy doing it to support us financially, and then I'll stop. See, it's going to be a level of hell in this country people haven't seen before. 20 May 2023, probability that U.S. banks will restrict cash withdrawals is rising like mercury, says macro guru Hugh Andrew. Now, this is the HODL website, Daily HODL. These are the Bitcoin folks. They're going to have a problem, too. JP Morgan is abruptly freezing customers' bank accounts, closing them, and discriminating against clients without warning law enforcement officials in 19 states. See, this isn't just some random this is some random financial guru saying this. 19 states have law enforcement officials that are saying JP Morgan is already planning for this. And this will be the other whammy that gets thrown in there. You see, they'll be first on the chopping block, the military guys, because they can eat in the chow hall. They can live in the barracks. There's going to be a lot of military guys going back on base, living in the barracks, and eating the chow halls because they're not going to be getting paid. They're not going to be getting paid for being soldiers. Devastating debt default threatens troop pay, defense programs. This is a giant, giant deal. And I really feel bad. I honestly do for the youngest that have come out and just started working, because they're going to be the ones that are going to have to work the longer, harder hours for less. Now, they're going to be thankful that they have a job, that they have an income coming in and all this, but they're going to be at the mercy of capitalist employers, because you know what's going to happen? Wages are going to tank. Why? Because capitalism 101. Don't pay more for what you can get for less. So with all of these people out there not getting government checks anymore, it's going to be a heyday of people wanting to work. So jobs are going to now go to the lowest bidder. Jobs will go to the lowest bidder, and they're going to ask 100,000 times more of employees than they asked before. Because there's always somebody there ready to take your job. See, they allude to this. I can't really talk about it here. This is a chart showing escort services on the rise. What they talk about in this article is how the women were complaining that because a lot of the guys, the Johns, know that a lot of women are in desperate straits, they're trying to push the envelope a little bit on what they can get for what. They're trying to negotiate the deal. Well, same thing. Exactly the same thing is going to happen in the work world. They're not going to raise wages. They're not going to give. There was a story I saw. I wish I would have brought it up about a girl that's worked at Target for 2 years. She was worked at Target for 5 years. They gave her a raise, 2%. 2%. That's it. I mean, this American dream idea that involves making banks rich and making big corporations rich, calling it capitalism, when pretty much everybody participates in socialism when they go to the grocery store. The vast majority of things on the shelf have already been paid for by the government through subsidies. But it'll be a mess. It'll be an absolute mess that'll just set off a chain reaction that, going into an election year, is going to be wonderful fodder for those who are still going to get checks. Forget quiet quitting. Millennials and Gen Zers are quietly working 2 jobs, living paycheck to paycheck, and now they're likely going to have to take care of older relatives. Because they're not going to let grandma and grandpa go live on the street. I mean, what are you going to do? And they don't have any more checks coming in. What are you going to do? This used to be, before Social Security, this is, was a big problem. Is, the whole series, the Waltons, where you had 4 generations of people all living under one roof. Folks had to be taken care of. And it wasn't nearly as nice as the Waltons. And those who didn't have family to take care of them, elderly folks, it was bad. It was absolutely horrible. You're going to see people on the streets begging. You're going to see all sorts of things that you would never have thought you would have seen in America. The tent cities are just the beginning. It's just the beginning. And let me reiterate this. Not saying this is great. Not saying this is wonderful or fantastic. But down in South America and other parts of the world, this has been the reality for a long time. Normal, everyday, married couples having to engage in this kind of activity to just get month to month, just get beyond, just get the bills paid, just stay in their home, keep shoes on the feet of the little one. It's been the reality. To us in North America, it seems aberrant, horrible, and immoral. I agree. But when you look at the option, when you look at the other thing that could happen, living on the street, getting evicted, having nowhere to go, a lot of people romanticize that. This whole fleeing into the wilderness thing, it is not romantic. It is incredibly, incredibly dangerous. And for older folks like this, that'll be the end of their lives. So, anyway, I will leave it there. But once again, God bless all of you. I very much appreciate it. Pray for each other, lift each other up, like, share, subscribe. Have a great week. We'll see you guys next time.